Beneath the shifting sands, the desert cradles its oldest secret in a cradle of bones and hunger, a relic that does not whisper but waits, patient as the stars, for the moment the world forgets to fear what it cannot name. Long before the first pharaohs raised their monuments to the sun, a temple sank beneath the dunes, its walls carved with warnings in a language even the sand dared not erase. The Proto-Berber tribes called it Asubdu, the mouth that hungers, and spoke of a god who fed not on blood or gold, but on the marrow of the soul, the ache of roads untraveled, loves unspoken, lives unlived. They buried it deep, praying the wind would claim its name. For millennia it slept. In the summer of 2023, a rogue sandstorm peeled back the Sahara's skin, exposing a slab of polished obsidian as wide as a city bus. Satellite images drew archaeologists like flies to rot. They arrived with drones and dreams, dismissing the Bedouin guide who refused to approach the site. "You wake the wrong hunger here," he warned, retreating to the horizon. The team laughed, chisels already biting stone. They found the first carving by dusk, a spiral devouring its tail, etched beside a figure with two sets of eyes. The second made them uneasy, human shapes kneeling before a hollow circle, their faces split into smiles and screams. By midnight, the lead researcher swore the obsidian slab hummed, its surface rippling like water under their headlamps. One by one, they peered into its depths. What they saw they would never describe, not fully. A graduate student wept for a brother who drowned years ago. A geologist traced the phantom curve of a child she'd never born. The team's director, a man haunted by his father's ghost, lingered longest, his reflection warping into a version of himself that laughed without regret. By dawn, the desert began to change. The sand glinted like broken glass, the stars blinked out, rearranged, and far beneath the earth, something ancient and ravenous stirred, its teeth slick with the taste of what if. Chapter 1. The Sahara swallowed sound. Tariq El-Masri knelt in the shadow of the dunes, fingertips brushing the edge of a sandstone slab. Wind hissed across the excavation site, flinging grit into his goggles. 10 meters below, his team's tents huddled like beetles, dwarfed by the skeletal remains of a temple even the Bedouin avoided. Its pillars leaned drunkenly, carved with serpentine glyphs that predated the pharaohs. Proto-Berber, the scholars called them, though Tariq had never seen symbols like these, jagged, almost violent, as if the stone itself had clawed its way into meaning. Yalla Boss called Amina Vossler from the trench, her Swiss accent sandpapered by years in the field. She tossed him a canteen. "Drink, you'll hallucinate faster than Idris can pray it away." Tariq caught it, warm metal biting into his palm. Amina crouched below, her sun-bleached braids coiled beneath a keffiyeh. She'd been his second-in-command since the Cairo dig of 17, back when they'd both still believed tenure mattered more than answers. Now, at 43, her face was a roadmap of sun cracks, her left leg stiff from the cobra bite that nearly killed her in Yemen. Pragmatism was her religion, but even she'd flinched when Idris, their Senegalese guide, refused to enter the temple. "This place eats ghosts," he'd muttered, retreating to the jeeps. Tariq unscrewed the canteen. "Any progress on the lower chamber?" "We hit a sealed door, basalt maybe, no handle, no keyhole, just," she gestured vaguely, "a hole like a coin slot." "Or an eye," Tariq said. Amina squinted up at him. "You're as bad as Idris." He smiled faintly. His father had said the same thing decades ago, when Tariq, age 7, sticky-fingered with baklava, had begged to join his dig at Giza. "Archaeology isn't fairy tales, Habibi," Dr. El-Masri had chided, but his eyes crinkled. "But if you insist on chasing ghosts, bring a better brush." The ghosts had outrun him. 1 month after that conversation, his father's team vanished in the western desert. No bodies, no debris, just a half-drunk cup of tea cooling in sand. Tariq's grip tightened on the canteen. 63 days ago, a sandstorm had unearthed this temple. Satellite imaging revealed a chamber matching descriptions in his father's journals, a black pupil in the earth, a god's blind eye. The university called it coincidence. Tariq called it a thread. "Let's see the door," he said. The temple's belly breathed cold. Tariq descended the rope ladder, headlamp slicing through gloom. The air smelled of burnt honey, a scent he associated with mummy resin, though this was sharper medicinal. Amina's team had exposed a vaulted corridor, its walls etched with those same frenzied glyphs. He trailed a gloved hand over them. "Don't," Amina warned behind him. "Idris says touching them invites jinn." "Since when do you care?" "Since the camera crew started vomiting." He glanced back. "What?" "3 of them this morning. Same symptoms, fever, vertigo, bleeding gums. Medevac 6 hours out. She lowered her voice. They were all in here yesterday, taking photos of the... Amina's headlamp jerked toward the far wall. A figure loomed in the carvings, a spindly, many-limbed shape, looming over stick-figure humans. Its head was a hollow circle, offerings piled at its feet, livestock, swords, what might have been children. "Cheerful," Tarek said. "Wait," Amina stepped closer. "The humans, look at their faces." He leaned in. Each tiny figure had two sets of eyes, one normal, the other a second pair etched vertically above, weeping black tears. "Schizophrenia," Amina ventured. Or they saw something that split their sight," Tarek murmured. A shout echoed down the corridor. Dr. El Masri, a grad student, skidded into view, dust streaking her hijab. The door, it's open. The basalt slab lay in pieces. Tarek knelt, running a light over the rubble. The door had shattered inward, edges glassy, as if melted. Beyond it yawned a circular chamber, its ceiling lost in shadow. In the center stood a pedestal, its surface frosted with silica. "We didn't touch it," the grad student whispered. "I swear." Camel was scanning the surface, and there was this sound. "What kind of sound?" "Like a bell, but deep, in your bones." Tarek straightened. "Stay here." "Boss," Amina began. "If I collapse, drag me out." The chamber swallowed his footsteps. His headlamp trembled over the pedestal, revealing a disc embedded in its top, obsidian, polished to a liquid sheen. 2 meters wide, its rim carved with concentric circles. Proto-Berber glyphs spiraled toward the center, where a palm-sized depression pulsed faintly blue. A lens, he realized, or an eye. His radio crackled. Tarek, Dr. Leela Chen's voice, crackling from Cairo. The university's resident physicist had been analyzing soil samples remotely. The spectrometer picking up neutrino spikes. Whatever's down there, it's emitting particles that shouldn't. "Later," Tarek said. He unclipped his brush, sweeping silica from the disk's edge. The glyphs here were different, not carved, but grown, crystalline structures forming angular shapes. One recurred repeatedly, a spiral devouring its own tail. Keteb, he thought suddenly. The word rose from nowhere, oily on his tongue. "Tarek," Amina's voice sharpened, "look at the floor." Around the pedestal, the stone was pocked with footprints. Small, bare, overlapping, a child's. His throat tightened. His father's journal, entry dated 2 days before the disappearance. Hassan swears he saw a boy in the tunnels. No one believes him, but the footprints. "We need to seal this," Amina said. Tarek reached for the disc. "Don't." The obsidian repelled. Amina's shout warped, stretching like taffy. The disc's surface wasn't solid. It flexed under Tarek's glove, a film of black oil. A hum shuddered through the chamber, deeper than sound, vibrating his molars. Blue light flared in the disc's center. Then silence. Amina gripped his arm. What the hell was that? Tarek couldn't answer. His headlamp flickered over the disc, now motionless. In its reflection, his face stared back, but younger, unlined, his father's smile etched into the glass. By dusk, half the team had peered into the lens. Camel, the grad student, went first. I see my brother," he stammered, tears cutting through his dust mask. "He's alive, he's laughing." Others followed, voices breaking. "My wife, she's walking again." "There's no scar, oh God, there's no scar." Amina refused. "It's a trick," she snapped, though her knuckles whitened around her insulin pump. "Stress-induced psychosis. We need to quarantine." Tarek said nothing. He'd lingered at the lens for 3 minutes after the others left, watching his reflection shift. The boy in the disc grew older, teenaged, university-aged, grinning beside a man whose face Tarek hadn't seen in 30 years. "Father," his reflection mouthed, pressing a palm to the glass. "I found you." Now slumped in his tent, Tarek scrolled through photos of the glyphs. The university's AI translator spat gibberish, but one phrase looped in his mind. Keteb Yamlaku Alard. Keteb owns the earth. Wind screamed, sand hissed against canvas. A shadow darkened his tent flap. "Idris," Tarek said, "come in." The guide ducked inside, his turban dusted orange. "You must cover it." The lens. It is a majaz, Idris's French accent thickened with fear. A doorway, but not for us. For what, then? Idris hesitated. In my village we tell of things that hunger, not for flesh, for doubles, the shape of a life. He leaned closer. Your father's team, they found such a door, yes. Tariq's chest tightened. How do you know that? Because 3 nights ago, I saw him. Who? A man in the storm. His face was yours, but older. He carried a bone. Idris stood, voice trembling. Cover the door, Dr. El-Masri, before it dreams you. Tariq woke to screaming. He stumbled outside, goggles askew. The camp blazed with floodlights. Camel knelt in the sand, clutching a bloodied arm. It took her, he sobbed. It looked like her, but... Where's Amina? Tariq demanded. It's here. She emerged from the temple trench, unharmed, but her eyes were wrong, flat like doll's glass. A smudge of black sand clung to her collar. Amina, Tariq said. She smiled. I fixed it. Behind her the Sahara rippled. The stars blinked out, replaced by 3 bleeding suns. Chapter 2. The stars were wrong. Tariq counted them through the jeep's cracked windshield, not the familiar sprawl of the Milky Way, but a grid of pinpricks arranged in perfect hexagons. Behind him, the camp buzzed with panicked French and Arabic as the remaining crew packed gear. 2 medevac helicopters had turned back mid-flight, pilots swearing the Sahara wasn't on their maps anymore. Amina, or the thing wearing her face, had vanished into the dunes, leaving only a trail of black sand that evaporated when touched. Idris sat beside him in the passenger seat, muttering verses from the Quran. The guide hadn't slept, his bloodshot eyes tracking every shadow. We must burn the bodies, he said for the 10th time. They're not bodies, Tariq said. Camel's arm, where the doppelganger had grabbed him, was now mottled with fractal bruises. The grad student crouched in the sand nearby, vomiting what looked like ash. They're copies, hollow ones. Hollow things don't blade. A fist pounded the jeep's hood. Dr. Leela Chen stood silhouetted against the triple suns, her lab coat flapping in a wind that smelled of burnt hair. El-Masri, get over here. Now. Tariq followed her to the communications tent, stepping over snapped generator cables. The physicist had transformed since arriving from Cairo, her manicured nails now ragged, her tablet screen cracked. She spent the night dissecting data from the lens, cross-referencing it with myths even Tariq's team hadn't heard. Tell me about Keteb, she demanded, shoving a thermal printout into his hands. The image showed the temple's lower chamber, overlaid with heat signatures. The lens glowed white-hot, but the real anomaly hovered above it. A serpentine shape, ice-cold, coiled in midair. A jinn, Idris said from the doorway. A topological defect, Leela snapped. A knot in spacetime. Your temple carvings mention it feeding on what? Radiation, biomass. Regret, Tariq said quietly. Leela paused. What? The visions, they showed us unlived lives, better ones. He rubbed his palm, still aching from where the lens's reflection had gripped him. Keteb's a parasite. It dangles what we lost, then eats the despair when we can't have it. That's not science. Neither is that, he nodded to the tent's mesh window. Outside, the horizon pulsed. A forest of petrified trees now sprouted from the dunes, their branches clawing at a sky streaked with neon green. Somewhere beyond them, a city's skyline flickered, minarets and skyscrapers fused, glass domes weeping black oil. Leela's defiance crumpled. The replacements are accelerating the entropy. Every time a doppelganger crosses over, it frays local reality. We've got hours, maybe less, before this entire region. She trailed off, staring at her hands. Her fingertips were translucent, veins glowing faintly blue. Before what? Tariq said. Before we stop being here. Camel died at noon. They found him by the generator, his body curled around the fuel canisters. His skin had calcified, cracking like porcelain, eyes milky orbs veined with gold. The real horror, though, lay beside him. A second camel, naked and hairless, its mouth stretched into a grin too wide for its skull. Don't touch it, Idris barked as Leela reached for her scalpel. The doppelganger's head lolled. I fixed him, it rasped, voice bubbling through lungs full of sand. No more pain, no more brother. Tariq recoiled. Camel's brother had died in a car crash 2 years ago, the loss that drove him into archaeology, chasing bones as if they could anchor the past. It's a mockery, Idris whispered. A skin. The thing giggled, joints snapping as it crab-walked backward. You'll want it too. When the stars eat the suns, you'll beg. Leela stabbed it through the throat. Black fluid oozed from the wound, hissing where it struck sand. The doppelganger collapsed, deflating like a punctured balloon, until only a stain remained. The air reeked of scorched metal. Well, Leela glared at Tariq, still think regret is the problem. He didn't answer. Camel's corpse, now crumbling into silica, still clutched a photo in his petrified hand, a snapshot of his brother, taken weeks before the accident. They buried what was left of Camel under a juniper tree that hadn't existed yesterday. Its roots gripped a Volkswagen Beetle half buried in the sand, license plate rusted but legible. Cairo, 1989. Tariq's father had owned the same model. We're in a graveyard of maybes, Leela said, kicking the car's tire. Alternate timelines collapsing into this one. Idris scowled, or hell. Tariq knelt, brushing sand from the windshield. In the reflection, a boy's face flickered, his own, age 7, laughing in a backseat that smelled of cardamom and his father's pipe. You're close, Habibi, the reflection mouthed. Don't stop now. Tariq, Leela gripped his shoulder. He blinked, the vision vanished. We need to go back to the temple. To the lens, are you insane? It's the only thread we've got. Keteb's tied to it. Destroy the lens, maybe we cut the knot. Idris shook his head. The desert won't let us. He was right. The jeep's GPS spun uselessly. The dunes had rearranged overnight, burying the temple under new ridges. They drove for hours, the triple suns bleaching the sky, only to find themselves looping past the same landmarks. The juniper tree, the fossilized beetle, Camel's grave. It's herding us, Leela said. The entity, it wants us at the temple for something. Or away from it, Tariq said. Amina found them at dusk. She materialized atop a dune, backlit by the bleeding suns, her braids undone and blowing wild. The team froze, Leela fumbling for her knife. Don't, Amina called. Her voice was wrong, sibilant, layered, like two people speaking through one throat. I'm not here to replace you, not yet. Tariq stepped forward. What are you here for? To offer a trade. She descended, black sand swirling around her boots. Up close her eyes were voids, starless and hungry. Keteb wants the lens intact, but it's generous. It'll spare those who willingly cross over. No pain, just a better life. Like Camel's better life, Leela spat. Amina's smile split her face. Camel was weak, his grief made him brittle. But you, she turned to Tariq, you've been strong, all these years chasing your father's ghost. Don't you want to rest? The air thickened, Tariq's vision doubled. The desert overlapped with a sunlit dig site, his father waving from a tent, alive and whole. The reflection in the lens beckoning. He's waiting, Amina crooned. Just say yes. Idris's machete bit into her shoulder. The doppelganger shrieked, peeling apart. Amina's skin sloughed off, revealing a writhing mass of black filaments beneath. Leela tackled Tariq as the thing lashed out, tendrils raking the air where his throat had been. Run, Idris yelled. They fled toward the juniper tree, the doppelganger's howls shaking the dunes. The beetle's doors were unlocked. Tariq wrenched one open, shoving Leela and Idris inside as the creature lunged. Its tendrils slammed against the windshield, cracking glass. Drive, Leela screamed. The engine roared to life. Tariq didn't question it, didn't question the keys in the ignition, the fuel gauge reading full, the cassette tape playing his father's favorite Kulthum song. He floored the accelerator, tires churning sand. In the rearview mirror, the doppelganger dissolved, its screams fading into the wind. The triple suns dipped below the horizon, plunging the desert into a twilight choked with fireflies the size of vultures. Idris whispered a prayer. Leela hyperventilated into her sleeves. Tariq gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. The cassette player clicked. Habibi, his father's voice, soft and impossibly alive, spilled from the speakers. You're so close, follow the lights. Ahead, the headlights illuminated a path through the dunes. Not sand, but thousands of glowing bones, arranged in a spiral. Chapter 3. The bones glowed like phosphorus, their pale light guiding the Volkswagen through the dunes. Tarek drove in silence, the cassette tape hissing static where his father's voice had been. Leela crouched in the back seat, her translucent fingers hovering over a seismograph app. "The ground's breathing," she muttered. "Literally, compression waves every 6 seconds, like a heartbeat." Idris said nothing. He clutched his machete, eyes fixed on the rearview mirror, where fireflies the size of fists throbbed in the dark. Their wings hummed a tune that made Tarek's teeth ache. Kulthum's Al-Atlal warped into a minor key. The bone path ended at a sinkhole. Tarek killed the engine. Below, the temple's jagged crown speared up from the sand, its pillars twisted into thorn-like spirals. The lens's chamber glowed faintly blue, casting long shadows that twitched like living things. "Trap," Idris said. "Obviously," Leela snapped, "but it's the only thread we've got. Keteb's tied to it. Destroy the lens, maybe we cut the knot." Idris shook his head. "The desert won't let us." He was right. The jeep's GPS spun uselessly. The dunes had rearranged overnight, burying the temple under new ridges. They drove for hours, the triple suns bleaching the sky, only to find themselves looping past the same landmarks: the juniper tree, the fossilized beetle, Camel's grave. "It's herding us," Leela said. "The entity, it wants us at the temple for something." "Or away from it," Tarek said. "Amina found them at dusk." She materialized atop a dune, backlit by the bleeding suns, her braids undone and blowing wild. The team froze, Leela fumbling for her knife. "Don't," Amina called. Her voice was wrong, sibilant, layered, like two people speaking through one throat. "I'm not here to replace you, not yet." Tarek stepped forward. "What are you here for?" "To offer a trade." She descended, black sand swirling around her boots. Up close, her eyes were voids, starless and hungry. "Keteb wants the lens intact, but it's generous. It'll spare those who willingly cross over. No pain, just a better life." "Like Camel's better life," Leela spat. Amina's smile split her face. Camel was weak, his grief made him brittle. "But you," she turned to Tarek, "you've been strong, all these years chasing your father's ghost. Don't you want to rest?" The air thickened, Tarek's vision doubled. The desert overlapped with a sunlit dig site, his father waving from a tent, alive and whole. The reflection in the lens beckoning. "He's waiting," Amina crooned. "Just say yes." Idris's machete bit into her shoulder. The doppelganger shrieked, peeling apart. Amina's skin sloughed off, revealing a writhing mass of black filaments beneath. Leela tackled Tarek as the thing lashed out, tendrils raking the air where his throat had been. "Run!" Idris yelled. They fled toward the juniper tree, the doppelganger's howls shaking the dunes. The beetle's doors were unlocked. Tarek wrenched one open, shoving Leela and Idris inside as the creature lunged. Its tendrils slammed against the windshield, cracking glass. "Drive!" Leela screamed. The engine roared to life. Tarek didn't question it, didn't question the keys in the ignition, the fuel gauge reading full, the cassette tape playing his father's favorite Kulthum song. He floored the accelerator, tires churning sand. In the rearview mirror, the doppelganger dissolved, its screams fading into the wind. The triple suns dipped below the horizon, plunging the desert into a twilight choked with fireflies the size of vultures. Idris whispered a prayer. Leela hyperventilated into her sleeves. Tarek gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. The cassette player clicked. "Habibi," his father's voice, soft and impossibly alive, spilled from the speakers. "You're so close, follow the lights." Ahead, the headlights illuminated a path through the dunes, not sand, but thousands of glowing bones, arranged in a spiral. Chapter 3. The bones glowed like phosphorus, their pale light guiding the Volkswagen through the dunes. Tarek drove in silence, the cassette tape hissing static where his father's voice had been. Leela crouched in the back seat, her translucent fingers hovering over a seismograph app. "The ground's breathing," she muttered. "Literally, compression waves every 6 seconds, like a heartbeat." Idris said nothing. He clutched his machete, eyes fixed on the rearview mirror, where fireflies the size of fists throbbed in the dark. Their wings hummed a tune that made Tarek's teeth ache. Kulthum's Al-Atlal warped into a minor key. The bone path ended at a sinkhole. Tarek killed the engine. Below, the temple's jagged crown speared up from the sand, its pillars twisted into thorn-like spirals. The lens's chamber glowed faintly blue, casting long shadows that twitched like living things. "Trap," Idris said. "Obviously," Leela snapped, "but it's the only thread we've got." She shouldered her pack, loaded with C4 rigged from the medevac's abandoned supplies. Blow the lens, maybe the feedback loop collapses. Tarek stared at the dashboard. The cassette player had begun smoking, molten plastic dripping onto his father's old mixtape. Follow the lights, he'd said, but the bones were dark now, crumbling to ash in the wind. They descended. The temple's walls had grown teeth. Fused to the sandstone were human molars, canines, shattered incisors, all pointing toward the central chamber. Leela ran a gloved hand over them. "These weren't here before, they're fresh." Idris recoiled. "Do not touch, they're Huri marks, traps for the greedy." "They're bioengineered," Leela shot back. "Same silica structure as the lens, it's replicating." Tarek pushed ahead, his headlamp catching movement in the dark. Figures flickered at the edge of sight. Amina, camel, but when he turned, only dust swirled. It had doubled in size, its edges fused to the floor and ceiling like a web. The pedestal was gone, replaced by a nest of calcified roots that throbbed wetly. In the lens's reflection, Tarek saw not himself, but a boy in a Cairo hospital, holding his comatose mother's hand. "You let her die," the reflection mouthed, "but I can fix that." "Don't look," Idris warned. Too late. Leela staggered toward the lens, entranced. "Mom," she whispered. In the glass, a woman in a lab coat adjusted a Nobel medal, smiling. You survived the crash." Leela, "No," Tarek grabbed her arm. She wrenched free. "She's alive in there, don't you get it? This isn't a parasite, it's a gift." The lens rippled. A hand thrust out, sleek, feminine, identical to Leela's, and gripped her wrist. Idris swung his machete. The blade severed the hand at the wrist. Black fluid geysered, splattering the roots, which recoiled with a shriek. Leela fell back, screaming, as the doppelgänger's arm retracted into the lens. The severed hand writhed, dissolving into sand that squirmed with microbe-like filaments. "It's learning," Tarek said. "Last time it sent copies, now it's fishing." Leela cradled her wrist, where the thing's grip had left fractal burns. "I'm sorry, I saw her." Idris yanked her upright. "What you saw was a worm on a hook." A rumble shook the chamber. Above them, the triple suns glared through a crack in the ceiling, their light bloody and diffuse. The teeth in the walls chattered, dislodging sand. "Place is destabilizing," Tarek said. "Plant the charges and go." The C4 stuck to the lens like leeches. Leela wired the detonator, her hands steadier now. 10 minutes, that's all we need. Idris frowned. "Allahu Akbar, let's leave this haram place." They climbed the sinkhole, the temple groaning behind them. The desert had changed again, dunes replaced by a swamp of tar pits, their surfaces reflecting skies from other worlds. A Europa-like ice plain, a Mars-red desert, a cityscape choked with bioluminescent vines. Tarek froze. "Where's the jeep?" The Volkswagen was gone. In its place stood a Bedouin tent, its fabric stitched from human skin. Shadows moved inside, their voices overlapping. "You're late, Habibi. Join us. Let me take your pain." Idris raised his machete. "Do not listen." But Tarek was already stepping forward. The tent's flap peeled open, revealing a man in a dust-streaked keffiyeh. His father's eyes, warm, crinkled, alive, locked onto his. "Tarek," the figure said, extending a hand. Bone shards glittered in its palm. "You found me." The detonator beeped. 5 minutes. "Tarek, don't," Leela lunged, but the swamp's tar seized her ankles, dragging her down. Idris hacked at the sludge, cursing. Tarek entered the tent. Inside smelled of cardamom and pipe smoke. His father's doppelganger poured tea, steam curling into shapes that looked like screaming faces. "You've been brave," it said, "but bravery is just fear with a prettier mask. Sit, rest." Tarek's legs buckled. He landed on a cushion stuffed with hair. "Where's the real you?"
This story continues. Subscribe to our channel, like the video, and listen to the rest.